Now.
You're the queen.
Okay. It's going.
Just stay on though. We're staying on? Stay on. Oh, we're staying on. Yeah. Just can't we go on YouTube as well? Go on Facebook, yeah, and just okay. Starting. Okay. And then you can think about them. And we'll tell them that if the sound is good from Jeff.
Yes.
So we'll just let you know if the sound is good. Right. First we're gonna see if it goes on first, and then we'll let you know if the sound is good in the comments, okay?
Alright, perfect.
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 Okay.
Alright.
Love you. You're awesome. Have fun, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Kenny, you're exiting. Sorry.
Say something.
Okay, if there will be a Willie problem, it's only because he wants to play. But so far we've got Jesse here, and Jesse will look at him and wave his finger and tell him not to talk, and all will be well.
Yes. Is the sound good?
Is the sound good?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, we have, what time is it?
I think we have,
Quite a few.
my watch says 5:02, but my watch is notoriously wrong. Let me open up to,
You have 2 minutes.
okay, here it says 6:58,
Yes.
so you are completely in sync.
I know.
In sync,
I'm always correct.
and I am going to get number 30.
Yes. It's also on the Facebook page, by the way.
Okay.
I just wanted you to know that.
No. Whatever you say, I believe.
Good.
Shall I give it to you?
No, I don't need that.
You don't want it.
No. Eileen and Paula are here.
Eileen and Paula. Hi. Gonna really see you soon.
Yes. Hi, baby. Hi.
I wish I had you here right now to fix the photograph I have of number 30, but you will eventually.
Okay, we have 1 minute until you start.
Okay. I've got my glasses ready.
I'm so proud of you.
You should be. You should be. Now do me a favor. Tell the sun not to glare. Glasses on.
It is 7 o'clock.
Hello everybody. It's 7 o'clock and we can begin. You have to wait a minute while Jesse puts the doggy away because the doggy is very loud and noisy. But Jesse does magic with him. Jesse, you did magic. Okay, let's begin. On the board, the wall, Jesse put this with painting number 30. Many years ago, I read this in Reader's Digest. I have never forgotten it. A child came in crying from playing with a friend. "Mom, Johnny hit me." She wiped his tears and said, "You need to balance the world. Run back quickly and do something good for someone who needs it. You need to balance the world." It's what I hope my broadcasts accomplish. And I'm going to ask you to help with that. Something really good was done for me this week. About a week ago, 2 weeks ago, my eyes began to hurt. And I thought it would go away, but it didn't. So I went to my wonderful eye doctor, Dr. Bertoli, and she gave me medication and said I have a sty. A sty is what it sounds like. It's horrible. And it helped, but on Sunday, I got panicky. I thought I need my eyes more than any other part of my body because otherwise I could never paint again. So I called the doctor, and she and Dr. Klein, her husband, had been my eye doctors for longer than I can imagine. And he came on a Sunday. He came to his office on Sunday and checked everything. And I was thinking, these are the things which make life worthwhile. When there are people kind enough to come on a Sunday to their office and tell me what to do. Because it's the little things which are huge to the recipient. And actually leaving your home on a Sunday morning is a big thing. And I'm going to read to you about this painting because it was filled with little things that happened of such wonderfulness. So let me read it to you, okay? Can you show it? Or is it there?
For what?
It's there? Oh, great, okay. Then I can use mine. View from a window on the west side of New York City. When I first met Philippe Monaco, I was working on a painting commission of Broadway and 21st Street, which you saw, I think, last week. He was passing by in his van and stopped to take a closer look at the canvas. He wanted a painting of Central Park, something which I'd often thought of doing. I'd envisioned it as being done from within the park. But he and Josie, the couple by the gray van on the right-hand side, persuaded me to do it, not to do it until I had seen the view from their window. And one Sunday afternoon I went up to see this. They were right. It was a breathtaking view. When the trees were bare and the hills and shrubbery were visible, I began. What a way to see the winter in New York. On Sundays when I worked there, I would sit by their large window and watch the horses and the joggers, the buses and the taxis go by. On days when the sleet sliced through the trees and the joggers ran by in shorts and light jackets, and when the pigeons swooped past the window, I felt as if I were a part of them. These were such beautiful Sundays. I would go there early in the morning when the city was still asleep. In those days, you could find parking. Remember, I'm painting when I tell these stories about 50 years ago, when there was parking next to Central Park, but also because I went so early. I would get there early in the mornings when the city was still asleep. Craig, aged 7, and Kim, aged 6. Both are next to Philippe and Josie in the painting, by the van. I would already, where am I? Yeah. They would have the paper on a stool on which to put my palette and place the chair next to the window for me. They would help me move the giant potted plant from the window and tell me what they had seen from there during the week. Later, Josie would bring coffee and Felipe would turn on the stereo. All my other paintings had been done from the street. This was pure luxury, and perhaps that is what made the canvas look so peaceful. You know, to sit there with those two little boys and who prepared everything for me, and then Josie would bring coffee and Felipe would put on the music. Those little things are so big and so different from working in the street. By the way, Josie was very, very strikingly beautiful. She was a model. And she didn't let her beauty make her arrogant. This is just about 50 years later, and I'm sure she's still so beautiful. I had known Central Park in so many different ways. I had worked through it, I had walked through it, drawn parts of it. We had taken our children to the zoo, to the skating ring and the playgrounds. Once we had driven from Long Island with our bicycles in the car and spent the day riding through its winding roads, but had never seen it from the height of a 6th floor window before and felt the full magic. Let me put this away and let me tell you more. Last week, there was Memorial Day, and I had read a cartoon which really affected me. It had 2 people talking about, I can't talk to you because you believe in one side, and the other one, and I can't talk to you because you believe in the other. And they passed a cemetery, and they said, this is why they died? For this? And I wanted to say, yes, and it did work. As bad as the news are so very often, but we have the United States of America, California and Nevada don't send bombs across. We are this many states, and we go from one to the other, even though there is COVID, and the driving has limits. But do you realize what you achieved so far? In Europe, each country has at some time fought another. And my mother grew up during World War I with her father in the army. At that time, what they lived in was Poland. It's now a different country. And yet, acts of kindness do exist. My mother wrote a book about it. And I would like to read this part to you. Remember, this was in 1914. There was no electricity. There was no heat, except for big stoves. Listen to this. I still remember the cold and rainy afternoon and the strong wind tearing through the branches and the trees bending low. The lifeless autumn leaves were forced to the ground and joined others on the flooded street. We lived behind closed windows and locked doors. A knock made us lower our voices and hide in corners to make believe that no one was home. Inside the house it was nice and warm. My mother was filling the samovar with water and the chimney with charcoal. A few drops of petroleum on the coal, a burning match, a flame, and the heat of the coal brought the water to a boil, and it was ready for coming. My parents for the tea. My parents expected some neighbors for the afternoon, and they began coming. My mother served tea and cookies and was busy moving about. Father, smoking a pipe, was silent. And the neighbors, some sitting, some standing, were discussing the latest news. War and mobilization, and the possibility of being taken into the army was discussed. All were afraid of war, and no one knew the answer. We are afraid of war, but it'll happen there. Never, it has never happened in our land. So, our soldiers went to foreign lands, but the foreign lands did not come to America. My mother wrote, our country was called Galicia and was part of the Austrian Empire. Russia was now our enemy. It took only days until the Austrian army began retreating and the Russian soldiers marched in. They overran our town, robbing, raping, burning, and the only victims were the Jews, who we were. My father was beaten and nearly killed. Fleeing between narrow streets, he hid in a peasant's home. My mother, young and pretty, was afraid to leave the house. I remember the evening when my father was hiding in a neighbor's home because the Russian soldiers were still after him. The children were sleeping, and my mother was darning socks by the dim light of a petrol lamp. Suddenly we heard a knock at the door and a voice calling, "Open up, we won't hurt you." My mother paled. Trembling, she walked toward the window and said, "It's late, my children are sleeping. We just want some tea, please open up." She opened the door, which could have been removed from the hinges in a second, and in front of that small woman stood two Russian soldiers, Cossacks, in long coats, fur hats, and heavy boots, with bullets hung from shoulder to the waist. They came in, looked at my mother and her children, and sadness marked their faces. "Don't be afraid of us," they said. "We mean no harm. We're only hungry and want something to eat." Mother served them tea, placed bread and butter on the table. They ate some, and with stories about their families, religion, and country, they dispersed our fear of them. They were Mohammedan and believed in Allah. They said they were friends of the Jews and belonged to the same race. "We love children," one said. "I have 2 daughters, and he has a son." They got up, thanked Mother for the food, threw a handful of coins on the table, and left. They returned one evening with bags of food and candies for the children and asked Mother to pray for them. 2 days later, there was another Russian soldier in town. They fled during the night, and Austrian soldiers came marching back. Our soldiers were running in disarray, leaving their field kitchens behind them, fleeing the town. I would like you to understand why people say to me, "How come you're always cheerful?" It's because I know what I escaped. If not for Nazi soldiers who saved my father, as I've told you about it, I would not be alive. I need you to realize what war is, because you don't. And so, I need you not to complain about me not being able to socialize. I need you to understand, if you would like me to read more in the future, you see, my mother is the reason for my writing. She always said, painting is not enough. You need words to explain things. And so with each painting, I write stories. I would like to explain how great this country really is, because it's so easy to forget. Our soldiers died so that the enemy could not come into the doors of Chicago and California. Instead, we went and killed their people in their homes. I have a reason for these broadcasts. You don't end war by killing people. You end war by becoming a friend. We have enough vaccines to vaccinate us in America. There are countries which don't have vaccines. Why don't we share? We have empty fields because we don't have people to harvest them. And yet you refuse entry to people who are fleeing to countries like my parents did. Why can't they come and work our fields? Refugees are the best workers you can find. I know. Because in my brain, I'm still a refugee. Let's talk about my tree, okay?
Oh, so you have a comment from Julie.
I would love it.
She says, so many welcome reminders to be grateful. Thank you. Love you. I remember reading your mom's memoir. She was so wise to realize the importance of recording our personal histories in words.
Oh, I'm glad. Do you think I should read every week a little bit of what my mother wrote? I would love it. Make your comments about that. But now let's go to my tree. In a sense, all of us share this tree because you're watching it grow. And I have no idea what it'll turn to be. Right now, the sun is setting out of this window. And I decided I was going to do a sunset. Okay? So I began. How do you begin? In order to go over and start putting color in, I had to go over the branches. I don't want them to disappear. I'm going to eventually darken them and reach out. Okay? What I did here, I need to explain. I needed to make the tree more graceful. It sat there like a lump. And the branches are so graceful, I didn't feel good. So if you can see here, I painted a chunk out. I don't know if I'll leave it or not, but I also ended up with some green on my brush, and I love it. See it over here? Maybe I'll put moss on the tree. Next week we'll find out. I'm going to plant it on deep ground. I don't want it to be shaking. I feel very emotional about it. As a matter of fact, Janine, when I started to work like an impressionist because my eyes aren't very good anymore. So I can't do very tiny details. She said, you grew another branch. And I don't know, we may grow more. But at the moment, what I'm going to do next week is experiment with the shape of the tree here. And eventually, I'm going to make these branches grasping, really reaching. And Jesse, who's running this program for me today, because Joan is not able to, I watch his face, because he's a wonderful artist. And when I said this about the reaching out, he smiled. Everybody needs a Jesse in their lives. Thank you. But I got him. Okay, now what I want to do is this. I would like, you see, the clouds in a sunset don't be fat. They're not fat. They tend to drift like this. Jesse's nodding his head. They really do.
They spread out.
They spread out, he says. Is that because of the winds or why? Is there a reason?
My guess would be the amount of evaporation from bodies of water that it takes.
Which we have here. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Don't take my word for it, though.
If you're wrong, somebody will say so.
Yeah.
Are there any comments I should hear?
Julie says, yes, that would be wonderful. Eileen says, yes, we'd love to hear more from Grandma Paula each week. Martha Bilski said, I would love to hear more reading. And then Eileen says, everybody needs a Jessie.
Yes. And he's a partner with me in this.
Yes, I am.
Yes, and so you'll hear a lot of him. As a matter of fact, when this broadcast ends, he's going to go into the other room and find out what I did wrong with the printer. Okay.
Yes, I will. Just for you.
Now, did I read about the? Yes, I did. I read about the picture, didn't I? The painting. Mm-hmm. Okay, then I can continue what I'm in the middle of. What I want to do is, I want to start doing trees. And the book that Julie and her family gave me is an amazing one because it says that the trees talk. And it really got me started because you and I and every human being, maybe every dog and cat also, but I do know every human being is made of so many different parts from centuries ago. Mm. Right? And maybe they speak. Maybe they tell us, because voices do talk to us. They do talk. But I think we also carry little voices that forbid us to do certain things. Maybe if you've been criticized too often for being messy, right? And suddenly somebody tells you, clean the floor. And it's a job. And that part reminds you of the parent who used to tell you, look what you spilled, clean it up. And so when the boss, who's paying you a salary, says it, maybe that little voice keeps coming where it shouldn't be, because it's a different story. Try to avoid the voice, to take the voices that you don't want and see if you can banish them. Are there any comments I still need to answer?
No.
Oh, good. Then I don't have to answer.
No.
But I would like you to give comments about your feelings. Do I have to say goodbye?
I would now because my phone's gonna die and I don't want to interrupt
Oh,
you.
if the phone is going to die. Jesse, thank you so much. And all of you who are listening, I love you. Bye-bye. Jesse has to go fix my printer.